we start getting into a point where people are starting to question, are the police trial boards really even legal? Where's the legal basis for them? Because it's not in the city charter.
Okay.
Right? It's just something the police department started doing. And the Fire and the Police Protective League proposed a 6-man board. The department chooses 3, and the accused chooses 3. What is the person that's above me going to think of me? Instead of having the intestinal fortitude to stand up and say, look, this is the right thing to do, they're more worried about themselves than they are that poor officer who's got to go through it.
Welcome back to the Aega Police Podcast here with your host, Marlon Marrache. Today, kind of like a special episode. And the reason why I say that is because you always hear me talking about this border rights hearing, border rights process, border rights. So let me kind of paint the picture for you. So in the Los Angeles Police Department, there is this disciplinary process by which you end up at this hearing. Many of you might know it as an appeal process. Some might know of it as an arbitration hearing, if you will. So somehow, some way, when you end up with serious allegations of misconduct, whether it's false statement, untruthfulness, dishonesty, perjury, or any serious allegations of misconduct, you're going to be facing termination type of hearings, right? And so with the Los Angeles Police Department, way back, and I'm talking early 1900s, if you will, this process, I should say, this hearing, right, has existed ever since back in those days. So I always wondered to myself, we need to know, and I need to ask, how did this all started? So I had to bring my FTO, Peter Harris. He had to fly all the way to Tennessee, not just to do this particular episode, but of course, we had to shoot 10 rounds. To maintain, you came all the way from Tennessee to shoot 10 rounds to maintain the HR 218?
The HR 218, it's the LEOSA. It's the law that allows retired, well, it allows peace officers, retired or not, to carry a firearm anywhere within the country.
Okay, yeah, and so we did. We went to go qualify, and of course we shot 10 ring like we always do. I got to ask you right off the bat, when we started discussing, hey, Marlon, you know what? I got to come to California to be HR 218 in compliance, if you will. I need to make it out there, spend some time with you, and we can go to the Elysian Park LAPD Academy and make it happen. And then, of course, my return favor was, okay, we'll do that, but you need to do some research and talk about this border rights process, which, by the way, no one experiences unless you're LAPD. Would that be fair to say?
Correct, right.
Yeah, LAPD, we can scrutinize and pass judgment how good it is, and we can also scrutinize and pass judgment of how bad it is. I'm going to say, because I was an advocate, right? I did take on that prosecutorial role to have these hearings, these border rights hearings, and prosecute cops for the majority of the time false statements, right? Serious allegations, you lie, you die, quote unquote. Let's kind of let's go to this journey of this border right. How did that all happen, and when did it started?
Okay, well, I want to also put out there that there's a couple of different ways that you can go to a border rights. You can be ordered there.
Correct.
For termination, or you can opt for a board.
100%.
If you believe that the punishment that you're receiving is unjust.
Correct. And in addition to that, you can opt, right? You have the option to do this if you believe, truly 100% believe, that the allegations are being levied against you are just not true whatsoever.
Correct.
In other words, if the department is alleging that these allegations are sustained meaning that it actually occurred, you know what, this did not happen, and therefore, you know what, this is totally unfair. I want to opt to this hearing. So, yeah, absolutely. Talk to me.
Okay. So when you asked me to start researching this, I kind of half-heartedly thought, oh yeah, okay, well, yeah, this is going to be boring.
But you're an LAPD history buff.
I am. You know that I recently wrote a book about the LAPD badge, and so yeah, I'm really into LAPD history. It's I find it fascinating. It's the history of the city. It's the history of the department.
Right.
And
this was boring.
Well, that was my impression at first, but when I really started digging into this, I started getting very interested. It was just as fascinating as any other process within the department, because the border rights system has evolved over time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the border rights system is something that, if I think that you would agree with me that it is people argue about it all the time, constantly. The league believes that the process is unjust, and that the department is just going after people by sending them to boards. I mean, that's the impression that many of us get, is that the league takes the stance that it's a draconian system.
Such that I believe, I want to say now it's been, maybe 8 years or so, where they put it on the ballot to, I think it was like Measure M or something, for the city to change the traditional panel, right? The board members, where
Correct.
Traditionally it was 2 command staff officers and 1 civilian. Civilian, for the most part, used to be is an attorney. Rare that you see another profession, or you can opt or choose a 3-member civilian board, because the league felt that there's probably more flexibility and more understanding, and they're not so quick to pull the trigger to terminate officers.
Right. So, but the opinions about the board depends upon your perspective, because the department looks at it. In fact, I don't know that the department was really all that happy about the fact that the civilians would be going on, or it could be a 3-civilian panel as opposed to 2 command officers and a civilian. There was a lot of controversy about that. I remember at the time when they were arguing over that as to which was better. And there's a lot of civilians out there who would say, well, we want the civilians on the board because these boards are just a rubber stamp.
Yes.
For these officers to be getting away with their misconduct.
Yeah.
So Absolutely. It all depends on your perspective. Well, nothing's changed. It's always been that way.
Since when?
Since 1916. Wow. The first, and I'll bring this up too, because you probably remember hearing some of the old timers when you first came on. They didn't really refer to it as a board of rights. They referred to it as a trial board.
Yes.
Okay? You've heard that term.
Correct.
That is an old LAPD term, because way back in 1916, it started out as a trial board. Okay. So what happened was we had a chief by the name of Snively. He'd been chief for about 5 months. And I found a news article where he was stepping down as chief. If you read between the lines in the article, I kind of got the impression that he was probably asked to resign because of the fact that the impression was that he was too lax in discipline on officers. So he stepped down, and a new chief came in by the name of Butler. And Butler gave a speech or released a statement at that time that essentially said that he said accused officers will immediately be called before a police trial board consisting of a police commissioner and 2 division commanders, preferably men under whom they have not served. That's the first mention that I can find, that's the oldest mention I can find of a police trial board.
Okay.
But that tells us that this is where the evolution starts.
Okay.
Okay. So and that was in 1916. The next time is about October of 1923, and there's a headline, Launch Drive on Brutality. So what happens is you've got 4 police officers at Maple and 7th who, well, the allegation is that they beat this man down in the street.
Okay.
And of course, the uproar is that it was a unauthorized force. That
okay.
That's how we would call it today.
Excessive.
It was excessive force.
Got it.
At the time, the chief then was August Vollmer. Mm-hmm. Now, if you know anything about police history, August Vollmer, he was a chief for LAPD for 1 year. He's known as the father of modern American policing. He was the chief of police in Berkeley. He was hired to come down to Los Angeles to clean up.
Okay.
He was a big advocate of training. He was a big advocate of technology. He was a progressive chief for the time.
Okay.
He was one of the people who was wanting to put radios in the patrol cars so that you didn't have to go and get your calls from the call box.
From the call box.
So he was very, very progressive at the time. So they decided to do a trial board on these officers, but it didn't happen. And the reason that it didn't happen was because the victim in this, his name was James Bate, and Bate refused to come and testify in this trial board without his attorney being present. And there was a rule at the time that when you come and testify as a witness, you can't have your attorney.
Oh, wow.
So because of the fact that he didn't testify, the officers were exonerated, and Chief Vollmer deemed that the force was justified.
Interesting.
So that caused an uproar within the commission and within
would it be command staff also, or no?
The city council. Well, because the police department, and we got to remember, it was very different back then.
Correct.
Okay, so the morals of the day were very different. I don't know that the command officers would have had a problem with what occurred.
I can't believe they did that. It's so preposterous. They should have been fired.
Correct.
Okay.
That's what the police commission and the city council were saying at the time, that it was a horrible thing that happened. So interestingly, during that time, now when an officer gets, when he's being disciplined, he gets either days off, right? He can get a paper penalty, he gets days off,
suspension,
or he's terminated. Well, there was a lot of different other penalties back then.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
like what?
February of 1924, there's a headline, Officers to Stand Auto Wreck Costs. So officers at that time, when they wrecked a car, they either paid for the damages or they were sent to a trial board.
Interesting.
So officers could end up having to pay for the damages to the police car, which is something that doesn't happen today, obviously, right?
I haven't heard of a war story where you get into a TC, for all that don't know traffic collisions, what is TC? We love our lingo, cop lingo. I haven't heard, even during our time in internal affairs.
It may end up costing you money, but it'll cost you money because you get suspension days and you don't get paid.
Yeah, or I think that's a great adjudication. Can you imagine being...
Well, I don't know. I wrecked a police car when I was a very young police officer, and the city lost a probably $20,000 police car. I don't know that I would have wanted to have to pay for that because it was totaled.
Right. So you just would have taken your suspension.
I took my suspension day, my one suspension day,
okay,
and I ran with it.
Okay.
So,
you know what? Then disregard what I said.
And by the way, I just caveat, it's the only suspension day I ever took on my career. The other thing that struck me as I'm doing this research is how things really haven't changed a whole lot with police officers. Police officers have been cops are cops, and they've been this way for a long time. So this was I found this headline very interesting. February of 1924, the board will hear police rum charge. Full investigation to be made of asserted orgy at Wilmington Station. And I read that and I was like, yeah, you know, those kinds of things still happen today. Yeah. And you have to remember, in 1924, it's the height of Prohibition.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal that they were drinking. The allegations were that there were 4 officers involved and 2 young women in the station. Interestingly, though, the allegations only came to light of the department because one of them was missing $15 after she left.
Wow. Do you think
she was more upset about the fact that she was missing $15,
not the orgy?
Right, and I'm kind of wondering, was that really a theft or was it a business dispute?
One, two. I almost want to reflect on certain words back then. I don't think that we would probably, the LA Times would put a headline with orgy. I don't see that. I mean, it's going to be sensationalized anyways.
Right.
That's pretty bad.
I don't know that they would use that salacious term.
Yes, very salacious.
So here was another one that I found interesting because I found a parallel between a more contemporary incident. Police inquiry on brutality to, and I don't know what the IWW is, but it was resumed. They had an inquiry into this. Now, and we also have to remember that these police trial boards, they weren't quite what we think of today, because the investigations, they were more like a board of inquiry or like a more akin to a grand jury hearing.
Right.
So they would bring everybody in and that's how they would do their investigation. They weren't really doing like Internal Affairs goes out and does an investigation, they write a report.
Oh, okay.
So they would bring everybody in and have everybody testify kind of to figure out what happened.
Right. So essentially there's formality, but yet it was informal as well.
Yeah, well, I think it's more along the lines of, well, we need to get everybody's statement so we know what happened. And then at the end of that, they would decide if there was a penalty involved.
Right.
So, but the interesting thing about that police inquiry was that it was like 39th and Dalton, because the article talks about them throwing the furniture out into the street while they were doing this search of the place. And if you know anything about LAPD history, 39th and Dalton there was allegations that officers during a search warrant had destroyed property improperly.
And that was a landmark case as well.
It was a landmark case, yeah. And here was another one that kind of made me laugh. The headline was, "Patrolman pays fine for a kick given to a boy." The kick was given to a small boy when he told the policeman his threats against a theater crowd were a lot of hot air. So the kid said, "You're full of hot air," and the policeman kicked him, and he was fined $5.50 for that.
Oh, wow. Okay. No trial board.
No, it doesn't say that he had a trial board.
Right.
I'm assuming that's
probably the way things were handled. So in other words, we all get together and kind of discuss it, and we render penalty.
And here was another one who was fined $25 for failing to appear in a shrine parade. Now, you've probably seen from the 20s the lines of uniformed officers in the Coliseum. You know, they have them up in the Academy Cafe. There's a lot of photos like that. And this officer, I read the article. It said that he had shown up to all of the practices and then did not show up to the parade itself. But this was another one that I don't think that they would print today. His fine was for his dumbness.
Wow.
So we get back into the police trials. In October of 1925, the headline was "Public Hearings Advocated for Police Trials." And this was another brutality case. And an officer by the name of Randolph was accused of brutality against a female, Rowena Jackson. And Randolph went to his trial board and was exonerated. And the city council was very upset at the verdict, and they called for abolishing the trial boards after that trial board.
Okay.
So it's very interesting. the trial board hears all the evidence, they make a decision, and once again, somebody's not happy with the decision. So, yeah, that process, it needs to go because it's all a whitewash.
Right. Which is common in today's border rights. Someone's going to say this just wasn't fair.
Well, and it's not just border rights. I mean, even
just a simple,
just a trial.
Trial.
I mean, if an officer is filed on, and goes to trial, and is found not guilty, I mean, how many times has that happened?
Correct.
And
the community's in an uproar,
and the world blows up.
Yeah.
So
100%.
November 11th of 1925, there's a Code for Trials ordered. Now, this was kind of interesting because we start getting into a point where people are starting to question, are the police trial boards really even legal? Where's the legal basis for them? Because it's not in the city charter.
Okay.
Right? It's just something the police department started doing. So they start thinking about the legality of it. And so the police commissioners, they refused the task of hearing charges against officers. The commission asked the City Council Committee on Rules and Regulations to create a code for procedure. They stated they have the full confidence in the police captains and it's not their job to conduct trials. So at some point, the police commission got involved in doing these police trials as well, or these trial boards. And it kind of goes back and forth.
For a little bit.
Yeah, for a little bit between captains and the commission. November of 1925, the trial board for police is created by the commissioners' actions refuse to heed the request of the city councilmen. So they created a board, the police commission. They create a board and they put a deputy chief in charge, a deputy chief by the name of Hilf, a captain named Jackson, and a captain named Spellman. And they are the 3-board panel for all trial boards.
Oh, wow.
So instead of how we do things today,
correct.
You know, those were the 3, and then they had 2 other captains, Gifford and Dawdle, as substitutes. So in case one of the other board members were unable to fulfill that duty, they did have somebody to come in and substitute. I just found that kind of interesting how they give that duty to these command officers, right? So that was November of 1925. Okay. The commission, they say, okay, you're the guys. September of 1926, right? Less than a year.
Okay.
Headline: Axe wielding in police shakeup. Commission summarily lops the trial board's heads under leniency to culprits assigned as cause. So the police commission says, you guys are a whitewash. You're letting these cops get away with all this stuff. You're out.
Okay.
So it's less than a year later. They want more discipline, so they put an inspector by the name of Lyon and a couple of other captains in charge, and they move one of the alternates up. But they just come in and they say, you guys are just whitewashing all this stuff, so you guys are out. And then in July of 1927, they did another shakeup because of an untimely death of a deputy chief who was involved. And then in December of 1927, the police board has new policy to avoid confusion, shorten meetings. The commission is provided with transcripts of boards. So what I took from this article is that your trial board was not the last stop.
Got it. Okay.
So if you went to a trial board and you were terminated, you could appeal that to the police commission. And the police commission would then have to hear that trial board again.
Okay. So you're doing it all over again.
Right. So in front of the police commission. The problem was that took up so much of the commission's time that they didn't have time for anything else. So at this point, they said, okay, all we want is the transcripts from everything. The only way that the commission would hear an appeal of a trial board was if there was new evidence.
Okay. Okay.
And the commission requested to review dismissals by the city charter. So they're still asking for, the city charter. And that was, again, July 6th of 27. About a year later, headline, abolish police trial boards. Commission letter tells chief outside government will not be tolerated. So they voted a year later to abolish the trial boards altogether.
Oh, wow. So let's just stop doing.
Right. So we're going to stop doing it. This system isn't working. Once again, I'm sure it's probably because of the perception that it's a whitewash. You're
very lenient. Leniency.
You're too lenient. You're letting these officers get away with everything. So they voted and they declared themselves as the judge and the jury in discipline cases. They didn't learn anything by the fact that that their time was being taken up. Now they decide that they're going to do it. The chief at this time is James Davis. Now, Davis is a real interesting guy. I got really, as I was doing research for this and for the badge book, I got really interested in James Davis because he was very controversial. He was serving at the time of a very corrupt mayor. And so I'm probably going to be doing more research into James Davis. I'd love to find his family and actually write a biography on him because I think he's fascinating. But James Davis's plan to handle that, he put the CO of, and I don't remember exactly what the title was, but today's equivalent would be the CO of personnel.
Okay. The commanding officer of personnel.
Correct.
Got it.
So he puts the commanding officer of personnel in that position of, okay,
make the decisions.
you're my discipline guy now.
Yeah, you're my go-to guy.
Right. So, but the employee still has the right to be heard by the commission.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm going to read this from the article.
Okay.
The police department has developed into a large organization. Naturally, as any other big business organization, there are a great many complaints pertaining to the conduct of officers. Past experience has shown that such complaints and investigations can be supervised by one head of an administration department without calling 2 or 3 other high-ranking officers from their duties to decide whether a man should be suspended or dismissed. The chief officer in charge of the administration department is just as capable of deciding upon the matter as a joint number.
Fair enough.
So that's how he was deciding this.
Okay.
And that was on June 1st, 1928. On June 6th, 1928, the CO of personnel fires his first officer.
Okay.
So 5 days later.
Would that be considered the first firing?
Well, it would be the first one under that system. Right.
Got it.
A patrolman was discharged and a sergeant was fined.
Mm-hmm.
So he did 2 of those boards.
Okay.
And then in August 10th of 28, the Chief Davis wins a victory against complaints against officers, restored province to the department. So during that time, they eliminate the special committee of the commissioners. So, the CO personnel is doing his, the commission is doing their thing. Well, the commission decides, or the chief decides, we should cut out the commission altogether.
Yeah.
Right. And the Chief Davis, how he makes his report, and once again, the commission is saying that the work is piling up because everybody who gets terminated or is disciplined wants their hearing before the commission.
Okay.
All right, so that was, and this is really funny because August 10th of 1928, right? January 3rd, 1929. Headline, Officer Trial Board wanted, restoration for trial board called for. So once again, they are calling for a return to the trial board system. So you see that
things weren't working the way they were supposed to. You think that was a lot of pressure, not just from the commission, probably the community, don't you think? Maybe?
Could be. I didn't get the impression that there was a lot of community. I got the impression from all of these articles that it was very political, because you have the commission that has they want their power, The city council wants their power. The chief wants his power, and everybody's kind of pulling. But yet, when the commission says, hey, we want to be the jury, well, the work piles up. They don't have the time to do that.
Yeah.
Because, let's face it, the police commission, they don't get paid. They're commissioners.
Correct.
So, and once again, they're calling for the trial board. They want to install the three panel members of the.
Got it. No more judge and jury in 1929.
Right. So in February of that year, the trial board is barred. One commissioner wanted reinstatement, while the rest of the commission turned it down. The headline for a couple of days later is trial board for police abolished by the commission. So they abolish it again. They're going back and forth with the trial boards, and that's kind of the gist of it. Abolish police trial boards, that's February. And then we get to September of 1930, police trial boards to be reorganized. Ranking officers hear evidence and the commission will serve as appeals. So they're going back to that system again.
Okay.
Which tells me they're realizing that there was value in that system.
Yeah. Where you have an independent 3-panel member.
Correct.
And if you wanted to appeal, then you can go to the commission or.
Right.
Okay.
So charter proviso, police trial board approved. So they're getting an approval from the city council that, and this is in September of 1930.
Okay.
That they're finally going to codify the trial board and everything about how that
process
happens. Correct. It's the first time it's proposed as an amendment to the city charter.
Okay. Back in 1930. Wow.
Now, interestingly, the Fire and Police Protective League, this is the first time that they, now it's the fire has theirs, the Protective League and the police have theirs. But back then it was combined. And the Fire and the Police Protective League proposed a 6-man board. The department chooses 3, and the accused chooses 3.
Okay.
So, and then we know that in 1932, it actually was put into the city charter and codified. Interestingly, and I didn't know this, it took until, and I didn't know they even needed to do this, but in February of 1935, they talk about a fireman who gets terminated at his board. And, but it mentions in there that amendment to the city charter had to be approved by the state legislature. And it wasn't approved until January of 1935.
Wow, okay.
And if you look at the city charter from 1932, you also see that there were amendments to it in 1935 and 1937. So in 1939, we have a new mayor, Fletcher Beauron.
Okay.
And he came in as a reformer. The Shaw administration, if I remember right, they held a special election. He was recalled, and Fletcher Beauron, who had been a judge, he ran for mayor and was elected, and he was elected as a reformer. He didn't like the police trial boards, so he wanted a new charter amendment to increase the commission's power. He believed that discipline should be returned, and the commission was now virtually impotent. And the force was self-governed and discipline meted out by a board of inquiry. So, once again, we're fighting over the Board of Rights, because this is now after it went through that charter amendment. It became the Board of Rights. In 1939, the council takes up charter changes. They wanted a change and amendments. It said charter is ambiguous after amendments from 1935 and 37.
Okay.
Then in March of 1939, the police commission dropped the plan to seek more power. So the police commission was seeking more power in that Board of Rights system, but they dropped it after a meeting with the mayor, the council amendment committee, and the Police and Fire Protective League. So it was a closed-door meeting. They didn't tell anybody what was said in there, but suddenly they decide to just kind of leave it as it is. June of 1939, we get a new chief by the name of Arthur Hoeman.
Okay.
And Hoeman said that discipline indicated by conference of new chief with 55 executives, he wanted to do away with the boards of inquiry instead and give division commanders to make an investigation. So we see that investigations are now becoming more of the norm.
Okay.
Kind
Wow.
of what
So
we
even
think
before
of.
then, they weren't even doing investigations.
They weren't really even doing investigations, okay? And this is 1939. In 1940, the police were criticized at a meeting of the Charter Committee. The former commissioner recommended that the chief of police be removed from civil service,
Okay.
which did happen under Prop F, right? And placed under the commission, and he urged a different method of discipline. The border right is too one-sided in favor of the officers. 1943, there's another criticism of the trial boards. Commission and the League held the closed-door conference regarding the border rights, but and in this one, it talks about the county grand jury actually they criticized the border right system as well. So
Interesting.
in 1949, and I added this because in July, I'm sorry, the headline is July 22, 1949, new police unit to probe misconduct. And this is when internal affairs became internal affairs.
It was born.
It was born.
What year was that again?
1949. Wow. And it was created by Chief William Wharton, who he was an interim chief. He was brought in as an interim chief while they were looking for the new chief. And the person placed in charge of the internal affairs was Inspector William H. Parker. He was placed in charge of internal affairs. Parker then, in 1950, becomes chief.
Got it.
And then all the way to 1953, the Police Commission eyes changes of officers' trials. Once again, arguments show bias and prejudice in favor of their fellow officers. So not a whole lot has changed in 100 years.
Wow. The system in it itself continues to be scrutinized from both parties. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Well, now, in doing your research, as you reflect on it, you just, on this particular process, is it a good process to have compared to other agencies? And I know you and I have been having conversations about arbitration hearings, sometimes civil service. I mentioned to you of a recent case where I was hired as an expert witness to tear down a specific completed internal affairs investigation in a city of sworn officers of less than 100, where they actually hand select. It's almost kind of like similar to what your research in border rights, this particular setting, if you will, where I had to testify, the city manager and the city attorney, and then they actually hand select their commissioners. It was 5 of them. And so when you walk in, you're already thinking to yourself, well, this has got to be biased, right? And so in your opinion, is this a good system to have, or what do you think?
In my opinion, I think it's probably the best system going out there. It's very much like our justice system in America. It's not perfect, but it never will be. And it will always be perceived one way or the other based on your perspective.
Right. Whatever lens you want to wear.
Whatever lens that you want to look at it through.
Yeah.
So, and of course, the officers are going to sit back and say, "Oh, well, it's one-sided. It's not fair.
Yeah.
I'm getting railroaded," and sometimes they may not be wrong.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I've seen a lot of, my 8 years at Internal Affairs, I saw a lot of people go before boards. And I saw the system work. more than once where, you know, the first time I appeared on your podcast, I told you about a case that I was the investigator on, and I absolutely thought the adjudicator got it wrong. Mm-hmm. The board got it right.
Yeah.
But like you say, like you're fond of saying, the penalty isn't the penalty. It's the process that's the penalty.
Yeah.
And that poor guy had to go through that process to reach the proper outcome at the end.
Yeah.
But they did get it right.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too. I've presided over 30 of these, prepared for probably 40 of these boards in my almost 4 years in internal affairs playing this role, you know, what I consider a prosecutorial role. And only 5 were actually terminated. And so I often ask myself, well, whatever happened to those other 25 that I put on, right, for the board in this hearing setting? And one of the answers that I always come up with is, not everything seems to be what you think it is, or what I should say, how serious it is. And about one of the only criticism that I have, I shouldn't say only, I do have a lot of criticism to this process, but one of those is the fact that let's not leave it up to this process and waiting for this hearing for those members to make a decision. You know, oftentimes, especially us, right? We come from a big machine. It's a big organization. There's a lot of levels of review. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
Right.
Someone should make a decision.
Well,
you know, but sometimes we say, you know what? Let's just let the hearing handle that.
Well, I think you're going to agree with me. A lot of the problem is cowardice.
Yes.
There's too many people who are afraid. Well, if I make this decision,
I agree.
What is the person that's above me going to think of
Mm-hmm.
me?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having the intestinal fortitude to stand up and say, look, this is the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. They're more worried about themselves than they are that poor officer who's got to go through this.
Yeah, and then the other kind of funky, if you will, is the chief says, hey, Pete, I'm going to send you to this hearing, and your fate lies on these 3 panel members. So let's just say it's traditional, 2 command staff officers with a civilian. Well, Marlon is one of the board members, and I just got promoted to captain. I got chosen for this board. But the chief is my boss. And so...
And the chief is the one who sent that person.
That's my point.
For me, too.
So it's kind of funky. It's like, hold on a second. If I go against you, then what happens to me? And again, that's self-serving, of course. Right. And to your point, it shouldn't be that way. You know, it's cowardice, shy, gun-shy, if you will, to make the right decision and to be fair and to be impartial and to be reasonable.
And I also have to say, I have seen some commanding officers who have done the right thing.
Yes.
And I've got so much respect for them.
Yeah, me too. Hey, man, do I get to keep that?
You do.
You know, because this has a lot of history, and I really appreciate you sharing all this and taking the time to kind of let the audience know that I always talk about this process, and not even our own LAPD is really familiar with this whole process.
Yeah, I found throughout my career that if officers had not gone through it, they didn't really know much about it. Yeah. They learned the ins and outs by getting dragged through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, brother. You and I, let's... we're going to go to, I'm not going to give away the spot because it's one of our spots that when you were my training officer, took me to. Pete, thank you so much for showing up. Always good to see you. Thanks for sharing all this. And like always, please be safe out there. And don't forget to go Code 6. Thank you.